For my 30th birthday, I had my eye on a limited edition handbag. Just as I took it, a heavily made-up woman rushed over and snatched it. When I confronted her, she slapped me without a word. My bodyguard, fueled by indignation, retaliated with 10 resounding slaps. But she declared, "My husband is Marcus, the CEO of Vance. Today, I'll make sure you regret this." I gave her a cold smile. "If your husband is the CEO of Vance, I'll buy this bag for you and beg for forgiveness on my knees. Marcus is spending my money, driving my car, supporting other women, and now he dares to bully me today. Who does he think he is?" Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Today was my 30th birthday, and also my 3-year wedding anniversary. I stood alone in front of the Hermes counter at Vance, staring blankly at the limited edition handbag. To say I wasn't lonely would be a lie. Over the past 3 years, Marcus had grown increasingly distant. From the sweet words at the beginning, he now wouldn't even look me in the eye. "Ma'am, this bag truly suits you," the sales assistant said with a beaming smile. Just as I was about to pay, Tiffany suddenly rushed over and snatched the bag from my hand. "Old woman, I want this bag. Move." She was heavily made up and dressed in designer clothes. Her eyes were flirtatious, and her voice was sharp and grating. "Ma'am, there's a principle of first come, first served," I said, frowning and trying to remain polite. "First come, first served? If I want it, it's mine." She scoffed, "You old woman, how dare you try to take it from me?" I felt everyone's eyes fixated on us. "Hey, why are you being so unreasonable?" I clearly had it first. I was reaching out to take the bag back. She raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. "Old woman, are you pushing your luck?" A searing pain immediately spread across my face. I covered my face, completely stunned. No one he had ever dared to treat me like this my entire life. The sales assistant, instead of intervening, fawned over Tiffany. "Ms. Tiffany, this bag truly suits you better. I'll wrap it up for you." Tiffany lifted her chin, looking at me triumphantly. So they knew each other. She must be a regular customer. Seeing the sales assistant's servile expression, a wave of anger surged within me. I was dressed simply, while she was covered in jewels. Did that mean I deserved to be bullied? Just then, Mike strode through the doorway. He was my bodyguard, buzz-cut, sharp eyes, and a muscular build. He usually didn't say much, but he was fiercely loyal to me. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Seeing the handprint on my face, a flash of murderous intent crossed his eyes. Before I could answer, he grabbed Tiffany's wrist and delivered 10 resounding backhanded slaps. Smack, smack, smack. Tiffany's lips were bleeding, her hair was disheveled, and her expensive earrings had flown off, scattering on the floor. "You dare hit me?" Mike's voice was cold and hard. "Disrespect him again, and I'll make you pay." The commotion drew a crowd of onlookers. You'll both pay for this." She scrambled up awkwardly, pulled out her jeweled phone, and made a tearful, high-pitched call. "Husband, I'm being beaten at Vance. They're bullying me. Boo-hoo-hoo." From the other end of the line, a man's deep, gentle voice replied, "Don't cry, baby. Who would dare lay a hand on you? I'm on my way." It was clearly Marcus's voice. She hung up, her face swollen and red, and sneered at me. "My husband is the CEO of Vance. You're dead." The store manager's legs turned to jelly upon hearing the words CEO of Vance. She rushed to apologize to Tiffany, then turned to me and said, "Ma'am, perhaps you should apologize to Ms. Tiffany?" It was clear she wanted me to swallow my pride and let the matter drop. Why should I? I stood there, my mind buzzing. No wonder Marcus had become so distant. He had someone else. Seeing smug expression, a surge of fury rose within me. Apologize? Never. If your husband is the CEO of Vance, I'll buy this bag for you and beg for forgiveness on my knees. Marcus, I'll be watching to see how you handle this situation today. A few minutes later, Marcus indeed arrived. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and a designer suit. Behind him were 2 mall security managers. He rushed in, his eyes fixed only on Tiffany, who was slumped on the floor, tears streaking her face. He darted forward and carefully helped her up. "Baby, who did this? Where are you hurt?" His voice was gentle, and his eyes were full of concern. He completely ignored me, standing there. The distance and coldness of the past few years instantly found their naked explanation. My anger boiled. Tiffany buried herself in Marcus's arms, pointed a finger at me, and whined tearfully, "Husband, you're finally here." It was this old woman, and her lackey. Look at my face, it's almost ruined. Marcus finally turned his gaze to me, his brows instantly knitting into a deep frown. I caught a fleeting flicker of panic in his eyes, but it quickly settled into calmness. Grace, it's you. His tone was icy, deliberately raising his voice as if I were the one causing a scene. What's wrong with you? So arrogant and overbearing in public, do you have no upbringing? He paused, looked at Tiffany in his arms, and declared, Tiffany is my long-lost sister I just reconnected with. How could you allow your subordinate to lay hands on her? Apologize to her at once. His shameless words, twisting the facts, almost made me laugh in disbelief. Long-lost sister? Marcus, do you take me for a fool? She's been calling you husband and throwing herself into your arms in public. The murmurs around us grew louder, and those gazes pierced me like needles. Marcus's face instantly darkened, his eyes becoming frighteningly sinister. He snapped harshly, silence. Tiffany calls me husband because that's an affectionate nickname for an older brother in our hometown. How can your mind be so disgusting? I see it now, you just can't stand to see me treating my long-lost sister well. He raised his voice further, with an undeniable oppressive tone. I'm telling you, Grace, you will apologize to Tiffany today, or this isn't over. A hometown custom? I let out a cold laugh. That lie was truly original, he didn't even need a rough draft. People around us had already started to whisper. So it's the shrewish woman who can't stand her sister-in-law. She looks so plain, yet she's surprisingly fierce. Each comment drilled into my ears, gnawing at my nerves. I felt like a clown, being ganged up on and publicly humiliated by the two of them. Suffocation and helplessness washed over me like a tide. Marcus's shamelessness had reached a point where it made me physically ill. Seeing me pressing my lips together in silence, Marcus assumed I was scared. He turned to the onlookers, actually forcing a magnanimous smile onto his face. Please excuse us, everyone. My wife is usually spoiled by me and can be a bit immature. These words pushed all the blame onto me, cementing my reputation as a shrewish woman. He played his part so well, I almost believed I really was that spoiled, unreasonable, wicked woman. Then, he turned back to me, his smile completely gone, replaced by a chilling grimness. He lowered his voice, saying each word distinctly, Grace, apologize. Then buy this bag and give it to Tiffany to make her happy. Then this whole thing will be over. Otherwise, don't blame me for not considering our shared past as husband and wife. He had the nerve to mention our marital bond? Tiffany now lifted her head from his embrace, glancing at me with a triumphant, sneering look. Her eyes were full of gloating and disdain. Did you hear that? My brother wants you to beg for forgiveness on your knees. And you have to buy me this bag too. Marcus was clearly growing impatient. Grace, I advise you to be sensible and apologize quickly to settle this. Don't force me to say things I'll regret. If this escalates, it'll be your reputation, your he family, that's disgraced. Look at her, she's probably a doormat at home too. Exactly. If the husband is capable outside, and she's dependent on him for every penny at home, isn't she just degrading herself? If I were her, I'd have found a hole to crawl into by now. How does she still have the nerve to stand here? These words were like blunt knives, slicing at my heart. Dependent on him for every penny? When has Grace ever been dependent on anyone for every penny? I clenched my fists tightly. So that's how unworthy I was in Marcus's eyes. These 3 years of marriage, in the end, had been utterly wasted. I slowly lifted my head, meeting Marcus's gaze directly. Are you sure you want me to apologize to her? There was no anger, no questioning, only cold indifference. Nonsense. Do you expect my sister to apologize to a shrewish woman like you? Grace, I'm warning you, don't play games with me here. My patience is limited. I finally saw Marcus for what he was, cold, selfish, and utterly shameless. And I finally realized what a foolish mistake it had been to marry him out of gratitude back then. I, Grace, had been a terrible judge of character, wasting 3 years of my youth. My gaze shifted away from Marcus's repulsive face. It moved to Tiffany, who was still arrogant and overbearing beside him. You're trying so hard to snatch this bag. Marcus promised to buy it for you, didn't he? He buys you cars, houses, designer jewelry, and handbags. He's quite generous. But do you know whose money he's using to appease you? Tiffany seemed unsettled by my gaze. Of course it's my brother's money. The CEO of Vance's money. What, are you envious? Or jealous that my brother treats me better than he treats you? Marcus felt a surge of unease. He let out a sudden roar, trying to cut me off and regain control of the situation. Grack. What in the world are you doing? Apologize to Tiffany now. My patience had also reached its limit. I violently yanked my arm, throwing his hand off with force. It made him stumble, almost losing his balance. Apologize? Fine. But I'm not the one who should apologize. It's you, you despicable pair. I pulled my phone from my bag and pressed speed dial 1. Robert, it's Grace. Bring all on-duty security to the Hermes counter on the 3rd floor immediately, within 3 minutes. Marcus looked at me in disbelief. What are you talking about? Tiffany was also stunned. The crowd began to stir. Some looked at me in confusion, while others secretly started filming the scene. The sales assistant and store manager exchanged bewildered glances. Marcus quickly regained his composure, letting out a cold laugh. Grace, you're just making a fool of yourself. Who is Robert? He's the mall manager. Why would he listen to you? Who do you think you are? Yes, who am I? I retorted, a cold smirk playing on my lips. You'll find out soon enough. In less than 2 minutes, Robert arrived, scrambling with a group of department managers and security supervisors. The moment they saw me, everyone bowed 90 degrees in unison, holding their breath. Chairwoman, your subordinates are late, please forgive us. Robert's voice was trembling, he didn't even dare to look up at me. The 2 security managers Marcus had brought with him went weak at the knees, almost falling to their knees. They didn't recognize me, but they knew Robert, and they knew he was the highest authority in the entire Vance. The crowd completely erupted. Those who had been pointing and whispering moments ago now stared wide-eyed, watching the scene in disbelief. Chairwoman? This woman is the chairwoman? No way, she looks so young. The store manager and sales assistant were trembling with fear. Marcus and Tiffany were utterly dumbfounded by the display. But he quickly forced a strained, ugly smile. Grace, you? A mere housewife who hasn't worked a day in her life, you're the chairwoman? He turned to Robert, his voice trembling slightly. Hey, Mr. Robert, have you made a mistake? I stepped forward, my full presence radiating. Marcus, do you actually think you got your position as department director based on your own abilities? It was just me taking pity on you, afraid you'd feel inferior, so I gave you a nominal position. I, Grace, am the chairwoman and CEO of Vance. And you're nothing but a dog the He family kept for 3 years. Marcus completely collapsed, sweat pouring down his forehead. He opened his mouth to speak, but found he couldn't utter a single word. Tiffany was trembling like a leaf. She clung tightly to Marcus's clothes, her lips quivering, unable to speak. Robert stood respectfully to the side, awaiting my instructions. He knew things had escalated significantly today. But he knew even more that at Vance, I was the only one in charge. Just then, a plainly dressed woman holding a boy of about 2 or 3 years old suddenly pushed through the crowd. She looked weary, her face etched with anxiety. Her eyes lit up as she saw Marcus and Tiffany, and she cried out urgently, Marcus. Tiffany. I finally found you. Leo is hungry, he's been crying for you both. I made him some soup. The little boy saw Marcus, wriggled free from the woman's hand, and rushed towards him, calling in a childish voice, Daddy, Mommy, hug. The entire place fell silent. All eyes were fixed on the child. The air seemed to freeze, even breathing sounds were clearly audible. I looked at the absurd scene and laughed. Marcus, you played the role of a loving husband for 3 years. Now, it's time for the curtain to fall. Mr. Robert, call the police. Charge them with fraud and bigamy. Also, investigate Marcus for any embezzlement during his tenure. Robert immediately pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed. I turned to the stunned onlookers. Lady. Yes and gentlemen, I apologize for the spectacle. 3 years ago, my mother was in a car accident. Marcus, who was a delivery man at the time, took her to the hospital and saved her leg. To repay that great kindness, I allowed him to marry into the He family. For 3 years as husband and wife, I treated him well. I never imagined that in the end, I would raise an ungrateful backstabber who would turn on its master. Marcus was now terrified. Tiffany held the child tightly, trembling uncontrollably. The murmurs around us rose and fell. Those who had been criticizing me earlier now looked at Marcus with contempt. So that's how it is. This man is utterly shameless. He married into her family for 3 years and still kept a mistress outside. Marcus abruptly pushed away Tiffany and the little boy clinging to him, then crawled on his knees towards me and desperately clasped my leg. Grace. I was wrong. I'm worse than dirt. He cried, tears and snot streaming down his face. It was all Tiffany, that vile woman, who seduced me. I have no feelings for her, and the child isn't mine. He was sobbing uncontrollably, his voice shaking violently. Believe me, I love you, Grace. For Sake, and for our shared past as husband and wife, please forgive me this once. I looked down at his grotesque display, feeling nothing but disgust. He knelt on the ground, clinging to my leg, crying like a child. But how had he treated me just moments ago? To prove his loyalty, Marcus actually backhanded Tiffany several times, knocking her to the ground. "Floozy, this is all your fault. Get out." His voice was hysterical, completely devoid of its earlier tenderness. Tiffany was stunned by the beating, covering her face and screaming. "Marcus, you're inhuman. You said you only loved me, that you'd marry me. You said Grace was a shrew, and you'd divorce her eventually. We have a child, and you said you'd buy us a big villa. You liar." The little boy started wailing, terrified. "Ma." Gus continued to hit her while spewing the most awful insults. Tiffany didn't back down. She clawed at his face with her nails, leaving several bloody scratches. The scene was utterly disgraceful, and the onlookers frowned. The couple, who had been so loving moments before, were now turning on each other like wild dogs. I watched the farce with cold eyes, unable to muster even a shred of sympathy. "Mr. Robert," I said, turning to Robert beside me, "notify the legal team to immediately draft a divorce settlement. Freeze all of Marcus's assets, revoke his CEO position, and reclaim every penny he's taken from me and the company over the past 3 years, including all assets he gifted to that woman. Not a single cent will be overlooked." Robert nodded repeatedly, immediately pulling out his phone to make arrangements. Just then, Mr. Cooper, the head of the group's legal department, rushed over, his forehead beaded with sweat. "Chairwoman," he panted, "I brought the legal team, and they're waiting downstairs." I nodded. "Terminate our partnership with this store immediately and reevaluate their tenancy." The store manager's legs went weak at my words, and she nearly collapsed. I didn't even spare her a glance. In less than 20 minutes, the police arrived on the scene. Mr. Cooper immediately stepped forward to meet them. "Officers, these are Marcus's suspicious transaction records from the past 3 years. The department has had these on file for a while, just waiting for the chairwoman's instructions. These are the purchase records for the luxury items Tiffany is wearing. Most were paid for using Marcus's additional credit card or company accounts." Robert also produced another document. "All our mall's consumption records are archived." The onlookers eagerly gave statements to the police, pointing out Marcus and Tiffany's arrogant behavior from moments before. "Officers, they were even embracing in public just now." Yes, and that woman kept calling him husband. They're clearly having an affair and still dared to be so arrogant. The plainly dressed woman holding the child sobbed as she added, "Officers, I'm Maria, the nanny they hired. I've worked for them for almost 3 years, and the child is over 2 years old." The little boy was still crying, calling Daddy, Mommy in his childish voice. As the silver handcuffs were placed on Marcus's and Tiffany's wrists, the two were still tearing at each other, cursing. "It's all that vile woman's fault." Marcus pointed at Tiffany and shrieked hysterically, "Officers, she seduced me." Tiffany screamed back, "He tricked me. I'm innocent. He told me he was single. Let me go. I didn't do anything wrong." She struggled, trying to break free from the handcuffs, but it was useless. Marcus turned his head to look at me, his eyes blazing with fury. "Grace, I saved your mom. You can't do this to me." His voice was already hoarse. "If it weren't for me back then, your mom would be dead." I watched him coldly, not saying a word. The police began to forcibly escort them out, but Marcus kept looking back at me. "Grace, you'll regret this. You'll regret this." The little boy saw his mom and dad being led away, and cried, trying to follow them. Maria pulled him back, weeping uncontrollably herself. "Leo, sweetie, don't cry, don't cry." She looked at everything in a daze, utterly helpless, not knowing what to do. I watched Marcus and Tiffany being led away, their backs disappearing, my face devoid of expression. There was not a ripple in my heart, only a sense of profound relief. "Mr. Robert, have the mall resume normal operations and reassure the customers. This kind of incident has a negative impact." Robert nodded repeatedly. "Yes, Chairwoman, I'll arrange it immediately." Legal Department. Cooperate with the police and ensure this becomes a watertight case. I don't want to see any surprises. Mr. Cooper immediately straightened his back. "Rest assured, Chairwoman. We will cooperate fully." The onlookers slowly dispersed, but many were still whispering. Today was supposed to be my 30th birthday, yet it ended in such a dramatic farce. While the scene was brutal, it also marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. From now on, I would never again compromise myself for anyone. The scene that unfolded in the mall was recorded by many. No sooner had I left than various short-form videos began to go viral online. Shocking. Wealthy and son-in-law cheating, firmly with by female CEO. Love exposed. Dance chairwoman them in the act of adultery. 3-year a hoax. Female CEOs powerful against. The footage in the videos was edited to be intensely dramatic. Marcus begging on his knees, Tiffany being slapped, and the little boy crying for "Daddy, Mommy." Online comments overwhelmingly supported me. The female CEO is amazing. That's exactly how you deal with a scumbag. This ungrateful backstabber should go to jail. Poor CEO, deceased for 3 years. Marcus is truly the scum of the earth. Within a few short hours, related topics were trending online. Marcus and Tiffany's personal information was thoroughly exposed by netizens. They were completely publicly shamed and disgraced. When David returned from the police department, I was standing in front of my office's floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the city lights glittered, but my heart was utterly dark. Chairwoman, Marcus has confessed everything. I didn't turn around, simply gazing out the window. Tell me. My voice was calm, but the hand holding my coffee cup was trembling slightly. Marcus confessed that 3 years ago, he began investigating your background. He used his identity as a delivery man to repeatedly scout your family's travel routes. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. So that's how it was. He also thoroughly analyzed your personality, believing that you valued loyalty and relationships, and that a single act of kindness would win your heart. So he bribed the truck driver to stage that car accident. The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor with a crash. Hot coffee splattered everywhere, just like my shattered heart. The so-called hero saving the damsel in distress was a complete hoax from beginning to end. Keep going, my voice rasped. Marcus said that the time, location, and route of the accident were all meticulously calculated by him. He ensured he could appear at the first moment, playing the role of a savior. I turned around and looked at Mr. David. He was startled by the chill in my eyes. What else? He said your mother's injuries at the time wouldn't have been so severe. Mr. David's voice trembled. But the truck driver deliberately hit her twice, specifically to make the act of saving her life more profound. I felt a wave of dizziness and reached out to steady myself against the desk. Mom had been hospitalized for a whole month then. I thought she was simply lucky to be alive. It turned out all that suffering had been engineered. What about Tiffany? I forced myself to ask calmly. She confessed too. Marcus often bragged to her about his cleverness, saying you were just a foolish woman blinded by love. He also said that Vance would be yours sooner or later. He was secretly transferring assets, preparing to find an opportunity to oust you. Hearing this, I felt a suffocating tightness in my chest, and a sudden urge to vomit. For 3 years, I had treated him as a benefactor, as my husband. Yet he had seen me as nothing more than a stepping stone, a prey. Chairwoman, are you all right? Mr. David asked cautiously. I shook my head. I was far from all right. All the beautiful memories of these past 3 years, every kiss, every tender moment, had all been an act. I remembered our wedding night, when Marcus told me, Grace, I will love you for a lifetime. I remembered staying up all night to care for him when he was sick. I remembered meticulously preparing TS for every holiday, while he always responded perfunctorily. Now, everything made sense. In his eyes, I had never been a wife, merely a tool to be exploited. Chairwoman? Mr. David called again. I slowly lifted my head. Mr. David, file additional charges, I said, enunciating each word. Assault and battery, and even consider attempted murder. I want him to spend the rest of his life behind bars. All the suffering my mother endured back then, all her pain, I want Marcus to repay it 100-fold. Mom, I'm sorry. I was so foolish, mistaking a wolf for a benefactor. Also, investigate that truck driver, I said, picking up the intercom. Charge him too. Mr. David quickly jotted down my words. Furthermore, contact the best private detective. My voice grew colder. I want to know every single shady dealing Marcus has been involved in over the past 3 years. Not a single one will be overlooked. Mr. David nodded. Rest assured, Chairwoman, with the current evidence, Marcus will get at least 15 years. If the assault and battery charges stand, it could be life imprisonment. It's not enough, I shook my head. I want him to never see the light of day again. Marcus completely lost his mind in county. He cried and screamed to see me, claiming he had important things to tell me. Chairwoman, Marcus said he's willing to expose others' wrongdoings in exchange for your forgiveness. I let out a cold laugh. Now he's scared? He also said, considering our shared past as husband and wife, he hopes you'll show him leniency, Mr. David said, flipping through the documents. He even brought up the favor of saving your mother's life. The favor of saving her life? He almost made me laugh with outrage. That car accident was his doing from the start. How dare he mention saving her life now? That man's audacity truly knew no bounds. What else? I leaned back in my chair, my tone eerily calm. He threatened that if you don't let him go, he'll expose your private matters. Although he didn't specify what private matters, his tone was venomous. I couldn't help but laugh aloud. Marcus, do you really think I'm still that easily bullied woman from 3 years ago? Tell his lawyer, I said, standing up and walking to the window. I, Grace, live with integrity and have nothing to hide. Tiffany, on her end, also began playing games. Chairwoman, Tiffany is now vehemently insisting she's the victim. She claims she was deceived by Marcus's sweet talk and was completely unaware he was married. I listened coldly, my fingers lightly tapping on the table. She even wants to press charges against Marcus for rape and fraud, Mr. Cooper continued, claiming Marcus lied about being single and promised to marry her. How ridiculous. Back at the mall, she had been calling him husband so affectionately. Now that things had gone south, she claimed she knew nothing? What about the properties and luxury goods under her name? I asked. She says Marcus gave them to her, and she thought it was his own money. Mr. Cooper shook his head. But she forgot that all these purchase records are dated. Many were bought after she and Marcus began living together. I stood up and walked to the other end of the office. This woman was utterly foolish. Since she chose to be the other woman, she had to face the consequences. Now she wanted to distance herself? Too late. Furthermore, the fact that she and Marcus publicly cohabited and had a child has too many witnesses. Mr. Cooper continued, including neighbors, property management, and even Maria, the nanny. All of Tiffany's defenses seemed pale and weak. Did she think a few tears and a show of pity would let her escape legal punishment? Dream on. I decided to play hardball with them. Let them turn on each other like wild dogs. Brilliant, Chairwoman, Mr. David exclaimed sincerely. This way, they'll betray each other to save themselves. I picked up my teacup and took a small sip. As expect. Marcus and Tiffany quickly took the bait. He admitted that he had used his position to take numerous kickbacks from the company's purchasing department. This alone amounted to nearly $1 million in embezzled funds from the company. Furthermore, he had accepted bribes from several suppliers, helping them secure numerous contracts. This also implicated an accountant from the finance department, who helped him falsify accounts and conceal the flow of funds. Excellent. We'll round them all up. Tiffany didn't back down either. She provided recordings of Marcus, detailing how he had orchestrated the car accident. The verdict was in. Marcus was sentenced to life imprisonment, deprivation of political rights for life, and confiscation of all illegal gains. The moment the gavel fell, I saw Marcus collapse in the defendant's box. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes filled with despair and resentment. I watched him, my face expressionless, feeling none of the satisfaction I'd imagined, only a calm sense of finality. Tiffany, convicted on multiple counts including fraud, was sentenced to 15 years in prison and fined $500,000. Tiffany fainted the moment she heard the verdict. Her once haughty face was now ashen. As I walked out of the courtroom, I saw Maria, the nanny, standing by the door, holding the little boy. The child didn't understand what was happening, only looking around in confusion. Maria saw me, hesitated, then walked over. Ms. Grace, Leo, Social services will make arrangements, I interrupted her. Kind-hearted people will adopt him. The child was innocent, but I had no obligation to pay for Marcus's sins. Back at the company, I immediately called an all-hands executive meeting. Everyone, the verdict is in, I said, sitting at the head of the conference table and scanning each person present. Next, I will be implementing a full overhaul of the company. The accountant from the finance department who helped Marcus falsify accounts has been fired and handed over to legal authorities. 3 managers from the purchasing department who accepted kickbacks have also been purged. From today forward, any employee of Vance who dares to betray the company's interests will suffer the same fate as Marcus. I hope everyone understands this clearly. The conference room was dead silent. Everyone bowed their heads, not daring to meet my gaze. Making money wasn't hard for me. The challenge was learning to trust again. Marcus's betrayal had taught me a valuable lesson. Relying on anyone else was never as good as relying on myself. A year passed, and it was my birthday again. This time, I didn't go to the mall for a gift, nor did I celebrate specially. In the evening, I stood in front of my office's floor-to-ceiling window, watching the sunset paint the entire city in golden hues. My phone rang. It was a message from my college roommate, Chloe. Happy dinner tonight? I looked at the message, thought for a moment, and replied, sounds good. Walking out of the company building, the night breeze caressed my face. I looked up at the starry sky. and a sudden, inexpressible lightness filled my heart. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.